Beloved, today I bring to you a message that may stir your heart, challenge your comfort, and awaken the divine destiny that lies within you. Have you ever wondered why some people just seem to carry a fire, an unstoppable force that changes lives wherever they go? I'm not talking about mere talent, nor fleeting luck. I'm talking about God's anointing, a powerful, life-shaking, destiny-defining anointing. And I tell you today, if you see these signs in your life, you are dangerously anointed by God. Dangerously anointed, not in the sense of harm to others, but in the sense that your life will shake foundations, defy odds, and bring miracles that cannot be explained by human logic. Yes, my dear friends, God doesn't anoint the comfortable or the complacent. He anoints those He wants to rise, those He wants to change the world through. And if you recognize these 5 signs in your life, you are walking in a divine fire that cannot be contained. First, the sign of the dangerously anointed is unshakable persistence. Listen carefully, because this is not just ordinary persistence. It is the kind that shakes the heavens, the kind that refuses to bow to circumstances, the kind that continues to rise when every human eye has already written you off. Life may try to stop you. Doors may slam in your face. People may laugh, criticize, and doubt your abilities. They may say, "This is too hard for you," or "You will never make it." They may even conspire against you, as if the universe itself is trying to block your path. And yet, when all seems lost, you press on. You continue to move, even when it feels like you are walking through fire, even when every step forward is met with resistance, even when your body is weary and your spirit is tired. This persistence, my friends, is not born out of mere stubbornness. It is birthed in faith. It is fueled by the whisper of the Spirit within, saying, "Do not give up, for I have chosen you for a purpose far greater than you can imagine." Look at Joseph, for example. Joseph, a young man full of dreams and divine vision, was sold into slavery by his own brothers. Imagine the betrayal, the pain, the hopelessness. One would think that such a life would break a person, that it would crush their spirit and bury their dreams forever. But Joseph did not quit. He did not allow bitterness, fear, or anger to dictate his future. Then, falsely accused by Potiphar's wife, he was thrown into prison. A prison cell. Can you imagine the despair, the isolation, the injustice? Yet even there, in the darkness, Joseph remained steadfast. He continued to believe, continued to trust, and continued to act with integrity. And what happened? God's hand moved. God elevated Joseph to a position of unimaginable authority in Egypt. He went from a slave to a ruler, from a prisoner to a person whose wisdom and insight would save nations from famine. Oh, my beloved, do you see? The persistence that refuses to quit, even when all looks lost, is the fingerprint of God upon your life. This is the first thing to understand about being dangerously anointed when every human eye sees defeat, when every sign points to failure, when every voice says, "You can't," but you rise anyway, pressing forward, believing anyway. That is when God shows up. That is when His power is released in ways that will astonish you. The world may not understand it. People may question it. Even your own mind may tremble at the obstacles before you. But when persistence meets faith, mountains move, chains break, doors open that no man can shut. Friends, think about your own life for a moment. Think about the dreams that have been ridiculed, the ideas that were dismissed, the battles that seemed too great to overcome. And yet, here you are. You are still standing. You are still trying. You are still believing. That, my beloved, is not coincidence. That is a divine signal. That is God's way of saying, I have anointed you, and I will not allow your persistence to be in vain. The dangerously anointed are persistent, not because they have superhuman strength, not because life is easy, but because they are fueled by a supernatural source. They are persistent because the Spirit of God within them refuses to let them settle for less than His plan. Let me be honest with you. Persistence is hard. It is exhausting. Sometimes it feels like you are running in a storm with no end in sight. Sometimes it feels like everyone else has stopped while you are left to carry the burden alone. But it is precisely in those moments when giving up seems reasonable, when quitting looks like the easier choice, that the dangerously anointed rise. Persistence is not just continuing when it is convenient, it is continuing when it is painful, when it is lonely, when it is uncomfortable. It is continuing when the world says, no more, and the Spirit inside says, press on, do not stop. Your breakthrough is near. Do you see, my friends, that persistence is not just about action, it is about attitude, it is about faith. It is about perspective. It is believing that even in your weakest moment, God is working. Even in your darkest hour, God is moving. Even in the longest night, dawn is coming. The dangerously anointed do not measure their progress by what they see around them. They measure it by the promises of God. And because they cling to those promises, they rise every time they fall. They march forward even when the path is unclear. They keep fighting even when the battle seems unwinnable. That is the nature of divine persistence. I want you to understand something. Persistence is contagious. When you refuse to quit, you inspire others. When you continue in faith, you create an atmosphere of hope. When you press on, the angels are released to fight your battles. Your persistence becomes a testimony, a beacon for others who are struggling. And the more you persist, the more your faith is strengthened, the more your vision becomes clear, and the more your destiny draws near. Ask yourself today, when others quit, do you still rise? When everyone else has walked away, do you continue to stand? When fear, doubt, and failure surround you, do you still believe? That, my beloved, is the mark of dangerous anointing. That is the signal that God is doing something extraordinary in your life. That is the sign that your persistence is not in vain and that your breakthrough is closer than you think. Do not despise the struggles, my friends. Do not resent the opposition. Do not allow discouragement to whisper lies in your ear. Every closed door, every delay, every setback is refining you, shaping you, preparing you for the destiny that God has designed for you. Every moment of persistence is a seed planted in faith, and one day that seed will blossom into a harvest of unimaginable blessings, victory, and honor. Remember, persistence is not about luck. It is not about timing. It is not about chance. It is about purpose. It is about faith that refuses to be shaken, commitment that refuses to waver, and a spirit that refuses to quit. The dangerously anointed are not afraid of trials because they know that every trial is temporary, every storm has an end, and every promise of God is eternal. They rise, they stand, they endure, and they press on until God's plan is fulfilled. So today, I encourage you to look at your life. Look at the obstacles, the setbacks, the disappointments, and ask yourself, am I persistent when others quit? Am I standing when others have fallen? Am I moving forward when everyone else is retreating? If your answer is yes, then hear me clearly. God has placed His anointing upon you. You are set apart. You are equipped. You are destined for greatness. Your persistence is not just determination. It is a divine signal, a heavenly mark, a supernatural confirmation that you are anointed for victory. Press on, my beloved. Keep moving. Keep believing. Keep standing. For even when the world sees defeat, when everything seems impossible, when the odds are against you, your persistence is a declaration to heaven that you are dangerously anointed, that your faith is unshakable, and that your breakthrough is inevitable. The second sign that you are dangerously anointed is a burden for people that cannot be explained. This is a burden that reaches beyond your comprehension, a weight that rests on your heart even when the world around you seems indifferent. Many people live their lives focused only on their own comfort, their own success, their own pleasures, but the dangerously anointed, those whom God has chosen for a special work, carry something different. It is a burden for people, a deep, unshakable compassion that does not come from human effort or education. It is a holy weight, a divine stirring that moves you to care, to pray, and to intercede for others, even when it inconveniences you, even when your own life is full of challenges. You may find yourself weeping for strangers, people whose names you do not know, faces you have never seen. You may feel an ache in your soul for broken families, for the widows and orphans, for the sick and the oppressed. You may pray with intensity for those who have never asked for prayer, and you feel joy when their burdens are lifted. This is not a feeling you can manufacture. It is not a call for attention, nor is it a response to what is easy or convenient. It is God placing His heart within yours. This unexplainable burden is a sign that your life is meant for more than ordinary living. It is a sign that your calling is greater than comfort, greater than security, and greater than personal gain. Consider the life of Mother Teresa. Here was a woman who had no wealth, no worldly power, no influence in the eyes of society. She could not command armies or governments. She could not control the economy or change policies with the wave of a hand. Yet she carried the suffering of millions within her heart. She saw the broken, the sick, the dying, and she felt their pain as though it were her own. She did not do this for recognition, for fame, or for any personal gain. She did it because God placed a divine burden upon her, a weight that moved her to action. And because she embraced this burden, the world saw miracles through her life. That burden, my friends, was not a curse, it was an anointing. You see, God does not place this weight in our hearts lightly. When He places a burden on you for people, it is an invitation to partner with Him in His work. It is a sign that He is preparing you to do something beyond what you can imagine, beyond what you think you are capable of. The dangerously anointed do not carry burdens for themselves alone. Their hearts are outward looking, focused on the needs of others, on the suffering that is hidden from the world's view. When God calls you to carry the weight of others, He is training you for a life of miraculous impact. Many times, people will not understand you. They may even question your motives. They may see your tears for the brokenhearted as weakness or foolishness. They may wonder why you spend your time praying for people who will never repay you, for causes that seem hopeless, for individuals whose lives may never cross your path again. But remember, the dangerously anointed are not moved by human approval. We are moved by God's heart. And when God places this weight in your soul, it is a call to obedience, a call to faith, and a call to action that will transform lives far beyond your own. You may ask, why do I feel this way? Why do I care so deeply for people I have never met? Let me tell you, it is because God has placed His compassion in you. It is His love that flows through you. And when that love is acted upon, when it moves through prayer, through service, through generosity, it brings life and hope where despair once reigned. Dangerous anointing always moves outward. It does not keep the blessing for the individual. It reaches, it touches, and it changes the world. Think for a moment about the simplest acts of love that have changed lives. Sometimes it is a warm meal for a hungry child, a kind word to someone who feels forgotten, a prayer lifted for a heart that feels hopeless. These may seem small, insignificant even, but they are not. They are the manifestation of the burden God has placed in your heart. They are the beginning of something much greater. The dangerously anointed carry a seed of divine intervention in every act of compassion, every tear shed for the hurting, every prayer lifted for the lost. You may not always see the immediate result, but God is working through your willingness to bear the weight of others. I want you to understand something very clearly. This burden is not a punishment. It is not a curse, and it is not something to resist or to despise. It is a gift. The same heart that aches for the suffering is the heart through which God will perform His miracles. The tears you shed for the broken are not wasted. They water the soil for new life. The prayers you lift for the unseen and unheard are heard in the heavens and bring forth the answer at the perfect time. God's anointing is always productive, always fruitful, and always outward reaching. And yes, it is difficult. Carrying the weight of others' burdens is not easy. You will be tempted to ignore it, to turn away, to say, this is too much for me. I have enough problems of my own. But let me encourage you, the dangerously anointed do not shrink back. They do not allow their personal trials to overshadow their compassion. They rise, they pray, they serve, and they give themselves even when they feel weak. That is the hallmark of a life that is anointed by God for a divine purpose. You may not see yourself as someone extraordinary. You may think that your resources, your abilities, or your influence are too small to make a difference. But God does not measure by what the world sees. He measures by obedience, by faith, and by a heart willing to carry the burdens of others. The dangerous anointing often rests on the humble, the overlooked, and the ordinary. Yet through them, God moves in extraordinary ways. Every tear, every prayer, every act of compassion becomes a conduit for His glory, a channel for miracles, a testimony to the world that His love is alive, active, and unstoppable. So, if you feel this unexplainable burden for people, rejoice. Rejoice because God is calling you to partnership with Him. Rejoice because He is equipping you for something far beyond yourself. Rejoice because this burden is evidence that you are dangerously anointed, set apart to impact lives in ways that will echo into eternity. Do not ignore the H in your heart. Do not dismiss the tears that flow for the suffering. Do not refuse the call to pray, to serve, to give, and to love. That is the work of God flowing through you. Let the weight of others' pain ignite your faith. Let it stir your soul to act boldly and courageously. Let it remind you that your life is not meant for comfort alone, but for service, for love, and for a divine purpose that touches the hearts of many. Dangerous anointing is always outward looking. It does not keep the blessing for the self. It multiplies in every life it touches. The more you embrace this burden, the more you will see God's hand at work. The more you will witness miracles. The more you will understand that nothing is wasted when God places His heart within you. Carry this burden with joy, with hope, and with unwavering faith. Pray for the broken, weep for the suffering, and act for the lost. The world needs your compassion, your love, your courage, and your obedience. And remember, the burden you feel is not a coincidence, not a mistake, and not a call to despair. It is a divine appointment. It is a sign that you are dangerously anointed, set up and prepared to carry out God's miraculous purposes in ways that will forever change lives. The third sign of a dangerously anointed life is the experience of supernatural guidance. It is a phenomenon that transcends ordinary understanding, a connection with a source of wisdom that seems to exist outside the confines of reason and conscious planning. It is not merely a matter of coincidence or chance. It is the invisible hand of providence shaping the contours of your life. In such moments, the ordinary frameworks of logic collapse, and yet doors open. Obstacles vanish, and paths appear as though crafted by an intelligence far greater than our own. This is not mere imagination, nor is it a fanciful hope. It is the tangible experience of being guided by a force that operates beyond the limitations of the ego. Consider the story of David, the shepherd boy. In the eyes of the world, he was insignificant, a youth tending sheep, unarmed, inexperienced, dwarfed by giants. Yet in that encounter with Goliath, David was not left to rely on his own strength or cunning. There was a voice within him, a guiding presence, an inner compass that whispered of courage, of strategy, of destiny. The victory was not his alone. It was the manifestation of guidance so precise and supernatural that what seemed impossible became inevitable. Here lies a truth we often overlook when one is dangerously anointed. Ordinary resources are insufficient, and ordinary logic is inadequate. You are led beyond what the mind can calculate. Supernatural guidance often manifests in subtle, almost imperceptible ways. It may be a dream that lingers in your consciousness long after waking, an idea that surfaces when the world is silent, a nudge in the direction that seems counterintuitive yet undeniably right. It is a quiet voice, not shouting but persistent, coaxing you to trust the unknown, to act despite fear, to step forward when the path is unclear. It is in these moments of uncertainty that the spiritually attuned recognize the hand of divine orchestration. To resist it is to resist life itself. For this guidance is not a suggestion, but a summons, a call to fulfill a destiny that lies beyond your conscious ambition. Many dismiss such experiences because they challenge reason. The human mind is trained to seek explanations, to reduce complexity into formulas, to measure outcomes before acting. Yet the dangerously anointed operate within a different paradigm. Their decisions, influenced by supernatural discernment, appear irrational to the casual observer. How could a young shepherd challenge a seasoned warrior? How could a seemingly unqualified individual succeed in endeavors far beyond their capacity? The answer lies in the invisible intelligence that guides their step. Trust, therefore, becomes not only a spiritual principle, but a psychological necessity. The anointed learn to navigate life not solely by evidence, but by a deeper attunement, a resonance with the archetypal forces that shape existence. Carl Jung spoke of the self, that central archetype which represents wholeness and the integration of the conscious with the unconscious. Supernatural guidance is, in many ways, an encounter with the self. It is the awakening of an inner knowing that transcends personal will, connecting the individual to a greater order. When you feel nudged, inspired, or drawn toward a particular course, you are responding to an archetypal intelligence within you, which itself is a reflection of divine orchestration. This is why guidance often defies conventional logic. It emerges from a realm that is not bound by linear time or material constraints. The anointed are conduits, vessels through which the ineffable communicates, and in listening, they participate in a process of creation that surpasses their personal understanding. It is crucial to understand that supernatural guidance is not always accompanied by dramatic signs or external miracles. Often, it is subtle, quiet, and internal. The whispers of intuition, the synchronistic events, the sudden clarity amid confusion. These are the markers of a dangerously anointed life. They require attentiveness, courage, and the willingness to step into the unknown. Fear will arise, as it always does, when one moves beyond the familiar. Doubt will attempt to erode confidence. Yet it is precisely in these moments when the mind rebels and reason questions that the strength of faith and discernment is tested. To follow supernatural guidance is to trust a power that is larger than your ego, larger than your fear, larger than your comprehension. Beloved, consider the pattern of history, the lives of those who have walked with divine guidance. Prophets, visionaries, and leaders were often dismissed by their contemporaries because their actions defied conventional expectations. They were guided by an intelligence unseen, orchestrated by forces beyond the ordinary, yet they achieved what others deemed impossible. In your own life, when you sense the gentle, persistent pull toward a certain path, do not ignore it. This is your anointing speaking, inviting you into a realm where the supernatural intersects with the natural, where the miraculous becomes routine, and where the impossible is realized. Trust in this guidance requires a surrender of control, a willingness to act not from certainty, but from obedience to the inner voice. It may lead you to decisions that appear risky, ventures that seem illogical, or moments that challenge your courage. Yet every step taken in alignment with this guidance builds a reality that the ego could never construct. The doors that open, the opportunities that present themselves, the protection and provision that appear. These are the fruits of walking in accord with a higher wisdom. Just as David was directed to choose a simple stone over conventional armor, you will find that the solution's life presence may be unconventional, yet profoundly effective. It is not only about the external outcomes. Supernatural guidance shapes character, refines the soul, and aligns consciousness with purpose. It teaches patience, discernment, humility, and courage. It instills an inner certainty that transcends appearances and circumstances. You begin to recognize that life is not random, that even chaos has order, and that your steps, though seemingly uncertain, are part of a larger design. In moments of doubt, remember that the same God who parted the Red Sea, who guided the Israelites through wilderness and trial, is able to part the obstacles in your life. Guidance may be quiet, but it is unwavering and it never errs. In conclusion, The dangerously anointed are marked by a sensitivity to the supernatural currents that shape reality. They hear the call, feel the nudges, and discern the path even when the mind cannot comprehend it. Trust in this guidance, embrace it, and allow it to lead you into the miraculous. The world may doubt you, logic may question your steps, and fear may whisper resistance, yet the hand of divine wisdom moves unerringly through your life. Like David, you are called to face giants, to step into uncertainty, and to achieve what the world deems impossible. Listen, trust, and act. Your guidance is real, your anointing is powerful, and your destiny is already being orchestrated. The fourth sign of a dangerously anointed life is that you thrive under pressure. You do not merely endure the tempests of existence, you transform them into a crucible of your becoming. Life, as we know it, is never free from storms. Darkness approaches each of us in forms both subtle and overwhelming, and the ordinary person, unprepared and unanswered, often succumbs. Yet there are those who, in the midst of chaos, do not bend, they do not shatter. There is a peculiar phenomenon at work, something ineffable, a force that transcends mere human resilience. This is what I would call the dangerous anointing, the energy within the soul that awakens precisely when the pressures of life seem most unbearable. Consider the archetypal image of Daniel in the lion's den. The scene is stark, terrifying in its immediacy. He is alone, surrounded by creatures of instinct, by danger. The physical reality is perilous, yet the spiritual reality is far deeper. Daniel is not merely surviving, he is integrated with a higher consciousness, a protective force that emanates from his alignment with the divine. The lions, embodiments of raw chaos and instinctual threat, do not harm him. Why? Because within him exists a harmony between the conscious and unconscious, a mastery of the shadow forces that usually enslave men and women. The anointing that protects Daniel is not a simple shield, it is a luminous force, a deep psychological equilibrium that allows him to confront danger without fear, to engage pressure without fracture. My friends, the essence of thriving under pressure is not that life has become easier or that you are untouched by difficulty. On the contrary, the pressure exists precisely because life is complex, demanding, and sometimes cruel. What distinguishes the dangerously anointed is their capacity to inhabit the storm fully, to confront adversity with consciousness, and to extract from it a profound growth. When others crumble, you find your footing. When others despair, you find clarity. You become not merely a survivor, but an alchemist of circumstance. There is a symbolic lesson here. The storm is both the external circumstance and the inner chaos that resides in every human soul. To thrive is to integrate this chaos, to allow the soul's latent energies to manifest in ways that are creative, transformative, and ultimately redemptive. Let us examine what pressure does to the ordinary psyche. Fear, doubt, and anxiety are natural reactions. They are the psyche's attempt to preserve itself from harm. Yet these same reactions, when left unchecked, can immobilize, distort, and even destroy the self. The dangerously anointed are not exempt from these feelings. They experience the shadow. They encounter fear, isolation, and uncertainty. But they do not capitulate. In fact, they recognize fear as a guide, a signal that something within the soul must be faced, understood, and transformed. Pressure becomes not an obstacle, but a mirror, reflecting the hidden potentials, the untapped courage, and the indomitable strength that resides within. Thriving under pressure is thus not an act of denial. It is the conscious engagement with both light and darkness, a willingness to descend into the den and emerge whole. Psychologically, there is a profound symbolism in this dynamic. Life's pressures act as catalysts for individuation, the process by which the self becomes fully itself. Just as gold is refined in fire, the human spirit is forged in adversity. The dangerously anointed do not simply endure trials, they extract meaning from them. Every crisis, every challenge, Every moment of despair is a threshold through which the soul passes toward greater wholeness. The pressure is not punitive, it is pedagogical. It teaches, refines, and awakens latent capacities that would otherwise remain dormant. The individual who thrives under pressure is a living testament to the principle that true power is not the absence of difficulty, but the mastery of response. We often look to biblical or historical figures as examples, but the principle is universal. Each of us can observe in our own lives moments when pressure revealed a hidden depth. Perhaps it was a time when expectations crushed you, yet somehow you found a resource of patience, creativity, or courage you did not know existed. Perhaps it was a relationship that threatened to unravel, and yet your integrity, empathy, or intuition allowed you to navigate the tension with grace. These moments are not random. They are the fingerprints of the divine, the subtle signatures of an anointing that calls forth strength precisely where ordinary resilience would fail. To recognize this within yourself is to awaken to a reality both spiritual and psychological. The soul, when aligned with its higher purpose, cannot be defeated by circumstance. Pressure also serves as a mirror for others. When you remain unshaken, when you act with courage, integrity, and clarity in the midst of chaos, you become a living example, a beacon for those who are floundering. Your response to trials has an unconscious effect on the collective psyche. It reassures, inspires, and often catalyzes courage in others. This is part of the dangerous anointing. It is never merely personal. It radiates outward. The soul that thrives under pressure becomes a crucible in which not only individual character is forged, but the collective spirit is subtly uplifted. This is why history remembers those who did not succumb to adversity. They become archetypes, symbols, and guides for generations yet unborn. And yet, thriving under pressure is not merely a matter of spiritual faith or psychological insight. It requires action. It requires the deliberate engagement with life's circumstances, the conscious choice to face fear and uncertainty rather than evade it. The dangerously anointed do not pray for pressure to disappear. They embrace it as an instrument of refinement. They understand that true mastery is demonstrated not in comfort, but in the theater of challenge. This is where destiny is revealed, where character is sculpted, and where the soul's highest potential is realized. Adversity, then, is a sacred teacher, and pressure is the crucible in which the divine within the self is made manifest. In conclusion, if you notice that in trials you do not merely survive, you grow, you shine, you become stronger, know that this is no accident. This is the signature of a life aligned with the divine, a life marked by the dangerous anointing. Pressure does not crush you, it completes you. Life's storms do not overwhelm you, they awaken you. You are being refined, strengthened, and equipped for a purpose far greater than ordinary existence. Just as Daniel emerged from the lion's den unscathed, so too can you emerge from your trials transformed, empowered, and luminous. The storms are not your enemy, they are the instruments of your awakening, the proof of your anointing, and the path to your highest destiny. And finally, we arrive at the fifth sign, perhaps the most profound of all. Your life leaves a trail of miracles. This is not merely about extraordinary events that defy logic, though they often appear so. It is a deeper, almost ineffable truth that your presence itself becomes a catalyst for transformation. Consider for a moment the nature of miracles, not as accidents or whimsical blessings, but as the natural outcome of alignment between the inner self and the greater currents of life. Miracles are the visible manifestations of the unseen order, the profound interplay of destiny, consciousness, and divine purpose. Those who carry the dangerous anointing do not merely experience life. They shape it. Wherever they walk, the world itself seems to respond, as if the very fabric of reality recognizes something sacred within them. Reflect on the biblical account of Elisha, a man whose life was saturated with the miraculous. Where he went, change followed. Where despair lingered, hope flourished. Widows' oil multiplied, lepers were cleansed, and even water was made sweet. These were not random acts of luck or coincidence. They were the outward expressions of a being in harmony with the archetypal forces of creation. In every story of miracles, there lies a lesson about the inner journey. One cannot summon the miraculous from external effort alone. It springs from a soul attuned to a higher order, from a consciousness that has embraced the paradoxes of life, and from a heart that has been tested by suffering yet remains steadfast in faith. You may have noticed in your own life that certain things seem to happen around you with astonishing synchronicity. Doors open unexpectedly, opportunities arise where none should exist, and situations resolve in ways that defy mere human planning. People are drawn to you, seeking comfort, guidance, or simply the warmth of your presence. Perhaps you have experienced moments when your prayers or intentions are answered rapidly, almost as if the universe itself bends to the vibration you emit. These are not merely fortunate coincidences. They are the markers of an individual who carries a dangerous anointing, a soul through which the divine expresses itself, a living conduit of transformative energy. It is crucial to understand, however, that miracles do not arise from ego or desire for recognition. The truly anointed person does not seek to be a spectacle or a source of envy. Rather, their life becomes a mirror in which others glimpse the infinite possibilities inherent in existence. Miracles, in this sense, are a reflection of the hidden potential within all of us. They remind us that life is more than the mundane patterns we often inhabit. The world, when touched by such a presence, begins to realign itself with higher truths. Walls that once seemed impenetrable crumble. Despair gives way to hope. The seemingly impossible becomes inevitable. Yet, one must approach this reality with both humility and courage. To walk as a bearer of miracles is to carry a weight that is at once exhilarating and profound. It is a sacred responsibility, for the energy that flows through you is not yours to manipulate selfishly. Like rivers that nourish the land, your life must be directed by wisdom and discernment. The dangerous anointing is not a license for personal gain or egoistic triumph. It is a call to participate consciously in the unfolding of a greater narrative, to be a steward of grace in a world that is often unaware of its own longing for the miraculous. There is a psychological truth intertwined with this spiritual reality. Carl Jung often spoke of individuation, the process by which a person becomes whole by integrating the shadow and conscious self. Similarly, the anointed life that leaves a trail of miracles is one that has embraced the depths of its own darkness and emerged in conscious alignment with its higher purpose. The miracle is not merely in external events, it is in the very transformation of the individual's being. The inner work, acknowledging fear, embracing suffering, cultivating compassion, becomes the fertile ground from which miraculous acts naturally emerge. One cannot scatter seeds of transformation if the soil of the soul remains barren. Consider the subtle yet profound ways in which your influence manifests. A word of encouragement spoken at the right moment, an act of kindness extended without expectation, the simple presence of someone who listens and cares deeply. These too are miracles. They may not be recorded in chronicles or sung in praise, yet they ripple outward, touching lives in ways you may never fully comprehend. Each person you encounter carries their own hidden burdens, and through your existence, their path is lightened, their hope rekindled. The trail of miracles is thus both tangible and invisible, a tapestry woven from countless small acts and extraordinary events alike. It is here that courage is required, for to walk in this power is to confront resistance, envy, and misunderstanding. Not everyone will recognize the miraculous in your life, and some may even seek to diminish or obstruct it. Yet, the dangerous anointing does not depend upon external validation. Its origin is internal, rooted in alignment with the divine, and fortified by a life lived with integrity, humility, and purpose. Like a flame that cannot be extinguished by storm or shadow, your influence endures, manifesting where it is most needed, often when you least expect it. Ultimately, To recognize that your life leaves a trail of miracles is to awaken to a profound responsibility to move consciously, to speak intentionally, to act with the awareness that your very presence carries the capacity to transform. The miracles are not for your applause, but for the world's healing. They are the natural consequence of living authentically, courageously, and in harmony with the deeper rhythms of existence. The dangerous anointing is not an abstraction. It is a living, breathing force that flows through you, touching everything you encounter. Rejoice, therefore, in this gift, but do not allow pride to blind you to its source. Every miracle that arises is a dialogue with something greater than yourself, a testimony that life is infused with purpose, that suffering can be transformed, and that the human spirit is capable of channeling forces beyond comprehension. Step forward boldly, yet with reverence. Speak words that heal, extend hands that help, and walk paths that inspire. Let your life be a trail upon which others can follow, finding courage, hope, and renewal. In this way, the fifth sign becomes not merely an observation, but a call to conscious living. Miracles are not random sparks. They are the inevitable result of a life aligned with the eternal, a life that has faced trials and emerged with unwavering faith, a life that recognizes that the ordinary is but a veil for the extraordinary. Your trail of miracles is the story of your dangerous anointing made visible. A story written not in ink or stone, but in the lives of those you touch, the hearts you uplift, and the hope you kindle in a world hungry for light. As you embrace this reality, you become not only a witness to miracles, but a participant in their unfolding. You awaken to the truth that every action, every choice, every word carries the potential to invoke the miraculous. The walls that once constrained your life, the obstacles that once seemed insurmountable, the despair that once loomed large, all begin to dissolve, revealing a landscape in which divine purpose flows freely, uninterrupted. And as this truth settles within you, the recognition comes your life, indeed, leaves a trail of miracles, and in so doing, shapes not only your destiny, but the destiny of all who cross your path. Beloved, if these signs are in your life, persistence in the face of defeat, an unexplainable burden for others, supernatural guidance, thriving under pressure, and a trail of miracles, then listen carefully. You are dangerously anointed by God. You are called not to blend in, but to rise up, not to follow the crowd, but to lead them. Not to live small, but to live a life that shakes heavens and earth. Today, I challenge you, embrace this anointing, step into your divine destiny, and let God use you mightily. Do not hide the fire, let it burn bright. The world is waiting for what only you can give. Remember, danger in God's hands is not destruction, it is transformation, it is purpose, it is destiny, it is miracles. Raise hands, pause for emphasis, look across the audience with conviction. Go now, my beloved, and live dangerously anointed.